we're going to do for our benchmark exam. So to start with, we're going to go all the way back to Unit 1, making sure that we understand some of those concepts that we learned early on in the year to make sure that we're successful on the benchmark exam. So to start with, we took a look at North American migration. With North American migration, we were looking at how people first came to North America and how North America actually got populated. And one of the things that we looked at is with the Clovis first theory is people came by land. How do they come by land? They came through the Bering Strait. And as you can see right here, this is open land. This is open water. Back during the end of the last ice age, this was covered in ice, so people were able to walk right across this land bridge. Once they came across, the ice melted, and now they're all trapped here. They're trapped in North America, and that's how North America came to be populated. That's one of the theories. One of the questions is, well, why did they come here in the first place? Most of the people during this time period were nomadic herders. And with the nomadic herders, they were following food sources. So they followed food as they came across this Bering Strait, and then the ice melted. Now they're trapped here. That's one theory, Clovis first. The other one we're going to take a look at briefly today is going to be the Solutrean theory. So, before we really get into all that, there are a couple of skills that we really need to know also to make sure that we're successful to do well on this test. Number one, bias, unreasoned belief about something. I'm very biased about Minnesota. I'm from Minnesota, so I think that everything about Minnesota is great. Point of view. This is perspective only one from one side, and this oftentimes will lead to bias. A lot of people who are diehard Ravens fans, when a ref makes a call, it's always wrong unless it's in the favor of the Ravens, because you're only looking at it from one point of view, one side. So a lot of times, our point of view when we see something, we're also showing our bias. Keep that in mind when it comes time for the test. Another important thing you need to know is the difference between primary and secondary sources. Primary sources are those first-hand accounts of something that was witnessed when you witness an event or an action. So if you were standing right there when a fire happened and you wrote about it, you are a primary source. If your friend who witnessed the event comes to school and talks about it, and then you tell someone else about it, that now becomes a secondary source because you weren't actually there to see the event. So when you're looking at the difference between primary and secondary sources, what you're really looking at is if you're actually there or if you're just retelling it but we're not actually there. So primary sources are going to be letters, journals, photographs, things like that. Secondary sources are going to be things like textbooks. So, going back again to North American migration, what you're really looking at, there are several theories out there about how people first came to North America. However, we're going to focus on we're going to focus on two of those issues that we studied in class. We talked about the Clovis first theory, and then we also talked about the Solutrean theory. Now, these are two different spear points that were found in North America, and they come from different parts of the world, so it varies on how people actually came to America. Clovis first is something that comes from Asia. People walking up through Asia, through Russia, and then into North America. Makes a lot of sense. Solutrean, very different point, and you can see the differences in the points and the shaving that happens on these stones. What you're really looking at here is when you're taking a close examination is the Solutrean, where they found this was in Europe. And they didn't think it was possible for people to go from all the way from Europe over to Asia, then up to Russia, over to North America. And it is actually believed that these people came by boat using animal skins, and they went across the ocean by going from ice chunk to ice chunk. So those are your two main theories. You have the Clovis first, and you have the Solutrean. Now, when you're looking at that shift from nomadic to sedentary societies, nomadic people are the people who moved around from place to place, and they were usually following a food source. And those people often had homes that could quickly be taken down and moved. And that's what you see up here. These homes can be quickly taken down and moved because their food source, buffalo or bison back then, may have moved to a different location, so they had to follow them, so they had to be able to quickly move. Now, to be able to move from a nomadic to a sedentary society, you needed agriculture. Because nomads were moving from place to place, you had to have those permanent homes. And I apologize for the text that's over here. But what you're looking at, to move from nomadic to sedentary, you had to develop agriculture to be able to live in a settled society. Because now you weren't following your food source, you had to have your own food source. And when they developed agriculture, they were able to stay in one spot and survive. And then they were able to build those permanent homes. Now, Native Americans had interactions with each other before the arrival of Europeans. Now, how did they interact with each other? Well, they interacted mainly through either conflict or trade. And we really focused on the interactions they had with trade. One tribe had something that was made in another tribe, so they would take something over and they would trade it with them, and that's how most of the interactions happened between Native Americans at this time before the arrival of Europeans. Now, Native American diversity. We want to look at, some people think that all Native Americans are exactly alike. And we want to be able to see that, no, that's not really the case. Native Americans were very diverse. So what I have on this slide is I have a bunch of different homes that different Native American tribes lived in. You can see some tribes lived in teepees. Some of them lived in wigwams. Some of them lived in longhouses. And some of them lived in pueblos. Now, the different tribes had the different types of homes. Location and geography played a role in these different types of homes. Pueblos were typically in your desert regions made out of mud and sand being dried in the sun. Teepees were more on the plains because they could be taken down and moved quickly. Wigwams are getting more towards your woodland Indians, and you can see that they can be taken down, not as quickly as a teepee, but they can be taken down. So really what this does is this right here, showing the different types of homes they lived in. They were different, meaning that they were diverse from one another. Some more examples is what they used for food sources. So on the plains, you had bison and buffalo that they used. And when you're talking about in the coastal regions, so in the northwest coast, they fished. And so that's what you have a picture of down here, them fishing. In this particular area, it's actually going to be salmon that they're fishing. And then when you're talking about up in the woodlands again, some of the Native American tribes hunted white-tailed deer, which is very specific to that region. Again, this is showing how the tribes are diverse. Not every tribe was exactly the same. They ate different types of food. They lived in different types of homes. Remember, Native American tribes were diverse. So, moving on, taking a look at the geography. We spent some time taking a look at the geography of these regions. So you can see on the map over here, these are all the different types of geographic regions that are in the United States. We did not examine all of these, but this is showing you everything in North America, which is present-day United States and present-day Canada. And you can see, again, North America has many different geographic regions. And showing you some pictures of the different regions. Starting at the top, you have the Great Plains. Most of it is wide, flat, open, not a lot of trees, perfect for farming. And the climate of this region lends itself to that also. Over here on the top right, what you were looking at the Rocky Mountains. And so obviously you're not going to be able to do a whole lot of planting in the Rocky Mountains because you don't have the space to do it. You don't have enough of a growing season because of the weather when you get in the higher elevations. Down in the bottom towards the center, what you're looking at is, this is the Gulf Coastal Plain. And then over here, you're looking at the Atlantic Coastal Plain. Again, the point of showing you all this is to show that there was a lot of diversity when it came to the geographic regions in the United States. The entire United States does not have the same geography, and you can see that today when you're thinking about what we have here in Maryland versus what they have in New York. It gets much colder in New York. Again, different geographic regions. Now, geography played an important part of America as we're starting to get ready to learn about people coming into America and what they did, because geography posed challenges, but it also posed many opportunities for the Native Americans and later the colonists. So we learned one of the very first colonies that came in the late 1500s, and that was by the Spanish in Florida, and that was in St. Augustine. And this one was destroyed many times because of storms, which we know today as hurricanes.